Okay, so I think we are live on Facebook now. Can anyone confirm that you can hear me and Alan?
Hello, testing.
Yes, I think we're good, Alan. Welcome to this Q&A session with Alan. We're gonna start off with Alan giving us an update about what's happened since the last Q&A, and afterwards we will have a lot of time for questions. So please just post your questions in the comment section, and then we'll take them after Alan's update. So Alan, take it away.
Yeah, thanks, Mikkel. Hi, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. I've turned my video off because I want to be sure that you can all see the slide deck here, and I'm assuming you can. If anybody cannot, then please let me know, and I'll try and reload it. But look, this slide deck you will not find, just like the previous calls that we've had, you won't find it on the website, although I have today updated the corporate deck. So you will find that that's been updated, and it's been 2 or 3 months since I have updated it. But this I did this morning specifically for you guys, and it's similar sort of format to the last one. So the last Facebook update we had was the 21st of December last year, just before Christmas. And so what's new since then? Well, quite a lot, actually. Despite the fact that we did take a break over the Christmas New Year period, in January we announced that we're onto a third golden oxide blanket above the central deposit. I predicted as much, I think, in the previous calls. And we've drilled some nice holes. We've put out 2 sets of results on central so far, and we've got 55 meters at 1.1 grams, 84.9 at 0.7, 37 meters at 1.3. Very similar to the stuff at both the oxide blankets at MG and PDM. It's very early days, guys. I can't tell you exactly what the size of this thing's going to be. But we will talk about it. It's very encouraging anyway. It's certainly going to add a significant amount of oxide material to the overall oxide resources here. The other nice thing is there's a very nice high-grade zone emerging within the underlying hard rock deposit at Central, where we're diamond drilling. So we have an RC rig doing the blanket right now at Central, and on point 2 we have a diamond rig. One of the 4 now diamond rigs is drilling at Central, and again, fairly recently, I think this was just a couple of weeks ago, we announced we'd cut 23.8 meters at 5.5 grams a ton. Within that, there are a couple of very high-grade intervals, 70 centimeters at 98 grams, and gold, 1.2 meters at 51 grams a ton gold. We're very pleased with the MET work that's come back. I think you all saw the MET, the preliminary results. This is just the bottle roll tests. But 6 of the 7 samples that we sent off just before Christmas came back indicating 91 to 97% gold recoveries within a 48-hour period. So it's very encouraging. The next step now is to put the samples into columns where they'll be leached, and that will take a longer period. So we won't get the column leach results until probably May, but the bottle roll results are very, very encouraging. I mentioned last time that we believe we're onto new mineralized zone at PDM, which is 2.5 kilometers to the northwest of Central. Last time we spoke, the week before, we'd released in mid-December, we'd released 22.4 meters at 4.8 in the underlying granitic rocks, the hard rock underneath the PDM blanket. Well, we followed that up in early January with a almost 12-meter section at 3.3 grams a ton. That was a big step out. That was 120 meters to the north. So we're getting more and more confident about PDM, the hard rock zone at PDM. Obviously, we know there's an oxide blanket on the top, but there's certainly a hard rock mineralized zone underneath it. It's still early days, guys. We've got a lot of drill results still pending. So we'll talk a little bit about that. We have had a very busy few 2 or 3 months here. The Mashishi and I don't know, my apologies, I did push this together fairly quickly. We got 3 points that are all numbered number 5. Excuse my the error, but I mean, obviously there should be 5, 6, and 7. But look, I mean, the Mashishi zone, which is a discovery that we made a couple of years ago, we thought we got a pretty good grip on the strike length, has just had a major shot in the arm because we've been doing some trenching 300 meters to the west and expanded the strike length in the process. Got some good gold results on surface, but we think we've significantly expanded that strike length by about 60%. So that's encouraging. We'll talk about that. You saw the news today, I hope. We've got another diamond rig on site now, which will give us the opportunity to keep testing these regional targets. Obviously, the success we've had at PDM, Bashishi, MG Central has got a consuming or the vast majority of our drilling effort. But as you know, this is a district and there's a lot going on. So we want to have the ability to keep testing these other targets, which are obviously a lot higher risk. But as you guys know, we've got some very good ones. And there'll be several of these coming up. We won't have received any drilling previously. The other thing that's really out of our control is the neighbours updated the feasibility study on the 9th of February, G Mining. And it's a very positive feasibility study. They used a 1,600 gold price, and that project has a 24% post-tax rate of return at $1,800 an ounce. It's more like 29% IRR. So that is going to be Brazil's third gold mine, and they're already building bridges and working on the infrastructure. So I think construction of the plant and the foundations and everything is likely to occur in the middle of the year. So that's very good for us for lots of different reasons, some of which we discussed previously. You guys, I think most people have seen this. My apologies for showing it to you again. I just put that in for those of you that are unfamiliar. This is just a slide of the Tapajós district and that big regional crustal scale fault structure which chops through this area in a northwest sense. All the black triangles, of course, as most of you are aware, are areas where placer gold was recovered during the world's largest gold rush in the 1980s. And Cuiú was the biggest area or placer gold producer during that time, all informal mining. And this just shows how much bigger that historic placer production was from Cuiú compared with TZ. And as I think you all are aware, for every placer ounce that was recovered during the 1980s from the streams at TZ, G Mining has 10 ounces in the underlying intrusive rocks in the hard rock deposit. Excuse me. Now, if that 1-to-10 ratio holds for Cuiú, there could be 20 million ounces at Cuiú. So there's most of the gold at Cuiú, all these yellow spidery lines are streams where gold was recovered. Most of that gold is still unexplained, even with these new discoveries that we've been making. I think most of you have seen this. The big difference here, and I haven't actually got it, but on the slide deck on the website that I think I just updated, there's one slide here, I think it's this slide, which is slightly different, which shows you some of the differences between Cuiú and TZ. The first thing is, apart from the massive footprint we have relative to their footprint in terms of the historic placer production, we really have a district with numerous targets and obviously an increasing number of deposits here. We've basically, back in 2018, the resource estimate that we have about 1 million ounces was obviously in this area in Central, this deposit here, and an MG, and that was based on approximately 30,000 meters of drilling. I think it was about 29,000 meters of drilling. Since then, we've drilled another 25,000 meters or so, and over the next few months, we should double that. So we should have another 50,000 meters in the next 6 months. That is obviously drilling will have been done since that last resource estimate was done. So what we're working towards here, guys, is a sort of a resource update for the whole district, and I'm hoping that's going to include resources on all 5 of these new deposits, the 3 blankets and the 2 hard rock zones. So we've got some work to do. I'm not going to guarantee they'll all come in. Obviously, Central and MG will be updated as well. Been having lots of great success at MG and Central. We're definitely adding ounces of both of those. Yeah, I did put this in. So this is really the upside on that 2018 resource base. As I said, we've done a lot of drilling since then. You're all aware that that there was a lot of high-grade material in 2018 that we drilled that didn't make it into the resource estimate because we didn't have separate wireframe shapes for the high grade. So it was also lumped in with the lower grade material. And as a result, when the consultant statisticians got hold of it, they all said, well, all these high grade numbers are statistical outliers, so we're going to cut them way back. As a result, our top cuts that were imposed on us range anywhere from 2 grams to 20 grams. And for those of you that are not familiar with what a top cut is, that means it's a sort of like a number whereby if your actual drill result, let's say, was 2.5 meters at 55 grams, we had a drill hole like that, and that drill hole is in a zone that was cut to 2 grams a ton. For the purpose of the resource estimate, you're not considering 2.5 meters at 55 grams. Your resource estimate considers that intercept as 2.5 meters at 2 grams. So, you can see our top cuts there range from anywhere to 2 to 20 grams a ton. Most of them are in the 5 to 10 gram a ton range in terms of different zones being cut to 5, 10 grams max. We've got lots and lots of very high grade drill intercepts, much higher than that. Those intercepts are clearly conservative when you compare those with the top cut at TZ that G Mining has, which is 25 grams a ton. So the main takeaway on that point is there was a lot of gold that wasn't included in the back in the 2018 resource estimate. In fact, the uncut resource at Kuyu back then was 1.5 million ounces. Talk about these 5 zones. I think most of you are aware of the 5 zones we've got here. Obviously, we've had some very good drill results in the last few months on some of these. I just plucked out some of the better ones, obviously, for each of these. And that's really where our focus is going. It is on, again, this very important. I mean, I think a lot of you are trying to figure out, well, where's this result from and where's that result from? And it can be confusing when you have a district scale play here with multiple deposits. Particularly, we've got several discoveries here we're trying to evaluate at the same time. But the focus really is on expanding the 2 known deposits and finding out how big these various new discoveries are. Okay, so zooming in a little bit, and I'll try and whip through this reasonably quick because I'm sure you're all busting to ask me a few questions. But the map on the right is an outline of the 2018 hard rock resource as we currently know it. There's several zones. It's a northwest trending body, several parallel zones in there. I'm not confident enough, or we're not confident enough yet to say, what's the extent of the blanket here? And I know that's frustrating for you because you're trying to figure out, is it as big as PDM or MG? How thick is it? Look, it's early days. We've got some RC drilling that we've been doing on the north, which is starting to pick it up, although it's lower grade. The diamond drilling is also picking up. The diamond drilling is going and testing the underlying deposit too, but in the process, it's picking up some really nice thick oxide sections, including 84.9 meters at 0.7. 68 meters at 0.8, 37 meters at 1.3, 55 meters at a gram, 15 meters at 1.7. So what's next? Well, we're going to continue evaluating this blanket zone to see how it is. It is a little bit different to MG and PDM in a good sense, because a lot of this oxide mineralization that we're seeing at Central in this blanket is actually weathered intrusive rock. The blankets of PDM and MG are sort of more silts, muds and sands that have been resulted from erosion, and the gold has been eroded, as have the intrusive rocks, and formed these sediments. We have that too at Central, but we have more of the actual soft, it's now soft, but it's weathered intrusive rock. We can still see the textures in the intrusive material. But what does that mean? Well, that means that probably that material, which is weathered intrusive material, will leach better than the sediments will, but they'll probably both leach very well too. So early days, guys, drilling in progress. I mentioned this high grade zone, which is emerging within the primary, is another word for hard rock. So, or basement, if you see basement, I'm talking about basement in a press release, or the primary or the hard rock. It's the underlying deposit in the hard granitic rock, which has not been weathered. Unweathered is hard. Weathered is soft, golden oxide. Okay. So getting some nice results here. I mean, this hole through here cut a very nice section of. On the top it hit about 68 meters at 0.8. Nice thick section. Obviously, we were thinking it would be probably about a third of that, but it's a nice section of oxide material. And then directly underneath it, there's a nice zone of 23.8 meters at 5.5 grams. Again, with the primary central gold deposit, we only started drilling a couple of months ago, so it's still early days. But there is a very nice hard rock zone emerging here when you look at the various sections. This is another mistake here that's creeping in. Drive me crazy. You guys saw some met work on the blanket at MG. That should say MG. That's the. Do I have a picture of the MG blanket? No, I don't. But you guys know where it is. Let's just go back here. The MG blanket sits right on top of the MG deposit. In the past, I've showed you these nice contoured things with the high grade part of the blanket. The met work is obviously a key step for us in determining the economic viability of the gold and oxide blankets of both MG and PDM, and now Central. We sent about half a ton of material from MG, which so far looks to be the biggest, although Central might be as big, possibly bigger. We don't know yet. Like I said, it's early days. Very good. So what happens here, guys, is they basically put the samples, and we sent them 7 samples in a big bottle and roll it with cyanide solution, to see how much gold is extracted. We know the grade that goes in of the material that's gone in, and then they can measure how much gold is going into solution. And 6 of the 7 samples had very good gold recoveries, 91 to 97% within 40 hours. Highly encouraging. The 7th sample, which is a clay sample, was lower. It's 81%. Not unexpected, because clay has obviously got a lot less pore space in it. It's more difficult when you've got clay material to leach the gold. And that was 81%. But the clay is only 2% of the overall blanket. So, we'd be much more concerned if it was 20, 30%, because that might impact how the solution would percolate through a heap that's leaching. So again, I think I said, results on the column leach test, unfortunately, we're going to have to wait a couple of months. It takes time to get these results back. But it's encouraging so far. Up to PDM, again, for those of you not familiar, PDM is up here, about 2.5 kilometers to the northwest of Central. We drilled this hole last year, I think, and cut 22 meters at 4.8. We stepped right up here, big step out. Normally you would step out 30 meters, 50 meters. The guys took a big chance and stepped out 120 meters, and not really knowing where the zone was, and they've cut it again, 11.9 meters, 2.3. It's a bit narrower and it's a bit lower grade, but still a really nice intercept. So, we've now got evidence that the zone has some continuity along strike. It certainly has some continuity down dip, because this early hole was drilled 110 meters underneath a trench which cut 15 meters at 4.1 grams on surface. So still open in every direction. Again, very early days on this. We got results pending on a number of diamond drill holes. What we're going to do is we're going to wait for those results to come back, and we'll take a breather, and we're going to move the rig out to Mashishi to drill that new area where we've been getting some nice, very nice looking samples from the trenches out on the eastern side. So we'll take it to Mashishi for a few weeks, wait for all the results to come back at PDM, and then we can plan additional drilling in the hard rock zone of PDM. But it's highly encouraging. I mean, I've always been very, very keen on PDM. It's you can see here, it's directly along strike. It's on, it's almost certainly controlled by exactly the same structure that Central is, and that does open up the possibility of what could be between PDM and Central. This Mutun area is interesting because we've got a lot of trenches here we've never drilled that are averaging about 1 gram on surface, so that will also get drilled when the rig comes back. What else have I got here? Yeah, I just mentioned Mashishi. So again, I've got to go back to this map. My apologies, I'm driving you all crazy, I'm sure, but Mashishi is this star, which is another east-west zone. It hasn't got an outline yet because we don't have a resource on it yet. But it is a hard rock zone, very similar to MG, and we thought this was probably the end of the deposit here. We cut a meter at 3 grams, narrow, low-grade section. That's probably it. Well, it doesn't look like that's it at all. Actually, it looks like it's pinched down, and then it comes up because one of these trenches cut 5 meters at 8.3 grams, including a meter at 37.8. Now, I stood on that trench in December, a few days before we had the update on the 21st, and there was a 2-meter section. There was actually the whole section, you could see the mineralized section with the quartz veins in it, was 7 or 8 meters wide. There's 2 meters in the middle, which had been mined previously by the small miners, probably during the gold rush times, down to a few meters. And so it looks like the best part of that zone in that trench, we weren't able to sample. So everybody's very excited. It's 300 meters to the west of this most westerly drill hole, and of course we don't know what happens further west on that. This big blue sort of zone here is a magnetic low, and mag lows are quite important in terms of being indicators for extensive alteration. So we're doing a lot more trenching in here, guys, so expect results over the next few weeks on the trenching. And as I said, in the next week or so, the rig will move from PDM to Mashishi, and we'll get some more holes in here. See what else we've got. This map also shows all that vein array. This is what we call the Mashishi Southwest vein array. But we've got a few holes, but these are largely narrow veins, but some of them are high grade. Our main interest right now is obviously putting a resource together on this thing. Best result on here so far is about 34 meters at 5 grams. It does pinch and swell as you go along it on an east-west sense, just like the MG deposit it does, which is just off the shot here to the south. So today we announced that we were going to, not where we're going, we already knew where we were bringing it in. It arrived on site, I think it was yesterday. And so the question, I guess, is where's it going to go? I did put it in the release, so we are going to have a crack, and this will change, but what's happened is because we've had so much success at PDM, Mashishi, and the ongoing work at Central and MG is having lots of success, it means that the regional program has taken a bit of a back seat. And so we want to try and address that. Now, the regional target testing will remain a secondary objective, because what we're all about over the next few months is to build ounces, add ounces at Central and MG, and define how many ounces are in those 5 new zones. But we want to get back to testing some of these other things. So we're going to go back to Indio to start with. Indio is a thing that we didn't fully test about a year ago because the ground was completely waterlogged and we had an RC rig. It wasn't ideal. The drilling conditions weren't great, and we weren't able to reach the target at Indio. We could see where the target was, where the small miners years ago taken out gold there, but we weren't able to drill that far. However, the drilling that we did do, I think there were 6 holes, did cut some reasonable values. 4 meters at, what's that? I can't even read it. 4 meters at 2.5 grams, a meter at 8.7. There are lots of this sort of material on surface. That's all sulfide. There's some very, very sexy looking rocks here on surface, guys. And so we are going to go back there. So I think I've just said all this. And we are going to test some other things that haven't been tested before. That should be Donna Mocca, but we're going to test Donna Mocca, which hasn't been tested before. We're going to have another crack at Trakaja, which again suffered a little bit from the same sort of drilling problems at Indio. We had the wrong piece of equipment and it was waterlogged. Now we've got a diamond rig, it'll be much easier. And so that's always exciting when you're testing these early stage targets. But look, I'm just saying to Mikhail, I'm not going to give all you guys a blow by blow of every hole from every regional target. These are high risk targets. There could be anything out there. There's obviously lots of unexplained boulders here, all this gold here, and these white streams that was mined during the gold rush. All of it's unexplained. We don't know where any of it's coming from. So there has to be some additional deposits in this eastern part, but I'll let you know when we're onto something really good. And I just had a few comments on the G mining feasibility study, which they released on the 9th of Feb. Very positive. They're talking about a capex of about 500 million. The NPV at 5% right now is estimated at over 600 million. I mean, this is going to be a big deal. This will be the biggest private investment in Western Pará state, and it will be Brazil's third largest gold mine. And so what? As I think you're all aware, our project has been next to a stranded 2 million ounce project for the last few years that Eldorado had on the back burner, and will shortly be next door to Brazil's largest gold development project, and then the third largest gold mine in Brazil. This was the point I was going to make earlier. It's made it onto this slide for some reason. But anyway, look, big difference that Cuiú has with TZ is we've got multiple deposits. They've only got one. And by the way, in the 11 years that Eldorado had that project, they didn't add a single ounce. Maybe G Mining will have more luck. I don't know. Maybe. But it doesn't look like they've got a swarm of targets. Clearly they don't. I mean, go read the feasibility study that they put out a few weeks, was it a week ago? 2 weeks ago. So we have multiple deposits and targets within a 10 by 15 kilometer area. That's not the case at TZ. Now, this is interesting. The best drill result that Eldorado had outside of TZ over the 11-year period they had the project was 20 meters at 1.7. Now, I suggest to you guys that we've been putting out drill results significantly better than that on a weekly basis. And a lot of those drill results are not coming from Central and MG. Some of them are, but a lot of them are coming on other things. So you only have to take a look at this map, which shows drill results outside of MG and Central. Compare it. So again, the best drill result that Eldorado had over 11 years was 20 meters at 1.7. Here we've got 27 meters at 6.9, 39 meters at 5. Ashishi, 34 meters at 5.3, 3.4 at 36.9. I suggest to you guys that the sheer number of very good drill intercepts outside of Central and MG makes it highly, highly likely that there's a lot more gold here. I don't think you could argue there isn't, particularly with the discoveries we've been making. Okay, I'll leave it at that. Hopefully you're still all there. Can somebody talk to me? Questions?
Yes, sorry, Alan, I was muted. We have the first question here from Martin. He's asking if the oxide comes back positive for heap leaching, what's the time frame for the first gold to be recovered for the heap?
Well, thanks for the question, Martin. The next step, getting that network back is highly positive. If the heap leach stuff is not positive, we'll almost certainly be able to recover the gold through a combination of gravity and CIL, which will be a bit more expensive, but there's still, I expect the margin to be huge. Not as profitable as heap leach, but the cost will still be very low. After that, we will move to a scoping study just on the oxide material. And that will probably take us 3 to 4 months. So sometime during the third or perhaps as late as the fourth quarter, we should know if the oxides, how economically viable the oxide material is, and have a bit of a plan. Now, because I expect the capital cost to be quite low, particularly if it's heap leach, it could be as low as $5 million, 10, 15, 20. It's not going to be the same as a $200, $300, $500 million operation. Obviously, we won't be producing the same amount of gold, but capital costs for that sort of stuff are very, very low. We will probably, rather than waste another sort of year or 18 months doing a multi-million-dollar feasibility study, we won't do that. We'll do a scoping study, and then we'll do perhaps a pre-feas study. But what we need to do is make absolutely certain that we've got the costs right before committing to it. But to answer your question, we could be constructing first half of next year. This time next year. I think this time next year would be the earliest, to be perfectly honest, because after the scoping study, we're going to have to finance it. Now that kind of money we could raise pretty quick. And I don't want to sort of overpromise and underdeliver, but I mean that I think realistically that's the soonest, 12 months starting construction. And then the next question Martin's going to ask is, well, okay, how long is the construction going to take? I would guess 6 to 9 months. Maybe a bit longer if we have to do gravity and CIL, maybe 12 months.
Okay, and what about permits?
Permits, we're quite advanced. We've got the trial mining licenses, so we could start with the trial mining licenses, which is what a lot of mines start in Brazil. You have limits into how much ore you can process. So we have trial mining licenses for MG and the Machixe area, and we're currently waiting on them for Central and PDM. So we expect to get those in the next couple of months. Now, full mining licenses, which would give us we're probably about 15 months away from getting the full mining licenses, but we're quite advanced. We've done a lot on the permitting front. I haven't made a lot of noise about it, but we're well advanced with the permitting. I don't expect any issues. And frankly, the fact that TZ that G Mining's committing to production at TZ is helping us. The permits all seem to be getting done the process is going a lot quicker. Why? Because obviously the government wants another big mine next to TZ.
Okay, that makes sense. We have a related question from Casper regarding the oxide and potential production. He's asking, currently we are just an exploration company, but do we have management skills in-house, experience and connections to establish a new business like gold production? What's your thoughts on that?
It's a really good question. Yes, we have a lot of those skills, but we would need to add several key people. Our manager in Brazil, Rory McKnight, was involved with putting the first mine into production in the Tapajós, and that's called Palito. That's an underground mine. So Rory knows, has been through the whole process. But he can't obviously do two jobs. He can't be running our company and also responsible for the build. So we would need more people for something like that. Given that we've been in the area a long time, we've already been discussing about it in terms of who might be available. We're thinking ahead, and there are people available that we know who would do a good job. So I don't see it as a major issue. I think if we were contemplating building another TZ, would it obviously be a different thing. We'd have to source hundreds of people. And we're not going to be, the workforce won't be anything like that size.
Okay, thanks. And we have a question from Martin again. In which month do you expect the next financing to happen? And will it be debt or dilution?
It won't be debt, guys. I mean, we're not going to... The problem is if you take on debt as an exploration company when you've got no revenues, that's a real recipe for disaster. So it will likely be another sort of equity type arrangement. We're exploring some options right now. I don't know exactly when it will come. Obviously, these are uncertain times for everybody. As terrible as the situation is in Eastern Europe, there are some positive implications for the gold price. So I'm looking at it very closely in terms of when we might, look or pursue that. We've still got money right now, but with 5 rigs turning, it is one of those things. It's nice to see that the share price has perked up a bit since we last chatted. I'm optimistic that it will continue to go up, but we'll see. We're having lots of success on the ground, so I can't say exactly. Sometime in the next few months.
So, and I know it's kind of a sensitive subject, but Can you maybe say a few words about your thoughts regarding getting in like a large strategic partner instead of just doing like a regular?
You guys are going to get me into trouble. I can see that.
Look, what I'll say, Miguel, is that we are currently have a number of different discussions going on, which may or may not come to fruition. I mean, it's definitely something that I think would be a positive for our company. You know, if we could get a strategic in, you know, one of the larger gold producers in to take a minority stake in our company, 5%, 10% stake. Obviously, we don't want to give them a controlling stake because most of this district is unexplored still, right? So, you know, we can't be testing 43 targets all at the same time or hope to test all those targets in a year or two. So this thing is going to keep growing and growing and growing. But I can say that we do have a number of discussions that are ongoing. And I'm sorry, I'll just have to leave it at that.
Okay, of course. And another question from Casper, also regarding capital requirements. He's asking, there's a lot of capital required to start a gold production in terms of structure, people, machinery. How are capital typically raised for this phase?
Oh, you're right, Casper. Typically there is, but the beauty about having all this oxide mineralization, as I've been harping on for the last, I don't know, what is it now, 6 months, 9 months since we first discovered the first oxide deposit, is just how cheap these things are to mine. Right, so just think about this, right? Probably if you step outside your house right now and there's some rocks on the ground, they're hard, right? In order to get gold out of those types of rocks, you've got to drill them and blast them. You need a huge amount of energy, and then you've got to put them in a big processing plant where you've got to first crush them. They go through a whole series of crushers, and then they go through grinding circuits, etc., etc. That all requires massive amount of capital, upfront capital, to buy all that equipment and then to run it. Now contrast that with if you step outside your house and you dig in the garden, in the soil material with your hand, and there's gold in it. Now, not infinitely, but significantly cheaper just to mine that soil, right? Imagine. I mean, you know, just think of yourself if you were going to try and crush the granite boulder on your doorstep or the flagstone in the high street in Copenhagen or wherever you are. You know, it's going to require a lot of energy. You're going to have to really, really think about it hard and find a power source and grinding equipment and all the rest of it. But if you get, you know, the same equivalent size piece of material of soil, well, maybe you just got to sieve it. And so I'm not trying to be flippant, guys. I'm trying to give you some sort of sense of how much cheaper it is to mine oxide material, which is unconsolidated. It's not solid rock. It's much cheaper. You don't need all that equipment. You don't need all that upfront cost. You do obviously need some equipment to move it, but trucks to move it and front-end loaders you can hire. You don't need to buy all this stuff. So again, you know, the upfront capital cost, if this stuff is amenable to heap leaching, are not going to be huge numbers. Like I said, if you look at comparable operations around the world, you will see it's very, very economic to get into production because this material's soft. I mean, it's easily manipulated. So, you know, like I said, I mean, if you look at comparable operations, 5, 10, 15, 20, that would be, that's 20 million, that's a lot for a heap leach type operation. So, you know, most mines aren't like that, of course. Most mines, they're mining hard rock material. G mining, you know, they're talking about 500 million. They're obviously going to produce a lot more gold, but, you know, they need 500 million. I mean, they need a massive amount of energy. I'll give you another example. For example, for a heap leach process, we don't need massive amounts of power. We don't need to have grid power. We can run the equipment we need from big generators. Well, G mining needs grid power. They're going to have massive ball mills. They're going to be processing 12,000 tons of material, grinding it all up a day, right? So anyway, that's my long-winded answer to that. You know, you got to get your headspace into a sort of different frame of mind where the costs are much, much less. So, by the way, I mean, we won't be producing 180,000 ounces a year like G Mining either. Who knows what we'll be producing, but it won't be anything like that. But the margin on it should be enormous.
All right, and another question from Casper. Currently, we all talk about things within a perspective of 6 to 18 months, but could we perhaps have Alan's thought or perspective on direction in longer terms, like 2 to 4 years?
With respect to what, Mikkel, is what the macro environment?
Yeah, everything, I guess, just like the outlook for Cabral Gold, looking past the next 18 months in terms of how you see the progress.
Well, I think the outlook for gold in general, and I suspect because most of you are tuning in, I don't know, but and you'll all have different opinions, but I suspect most of you are going to agree with me that the outlook for the gold price is positive looking forward. I mean, you've got a whole perfect storm which is brewing here. There's already, I would argue, is already kicked off. I think the gold price is going to continue to go up. When in that kind of environment, the majors catch a bid first, and it trickles down through the intermediates, and finally there is this time delay. There's always this time delay when the gold price really starts to move up, and finally it will start to come back into the juniors. And you want to be ready, guys, when it does, because when the interest and capital starts moving in the junior companies, it happens really quickly. I'm sure, I know this. I learned this the hard way. I thought, I'll leave it a couple of weeks and see what happens. Well, I missed the boat. All the stocks had gone up. So I think the outlook's very good. Now, unfortunately, I don't have a crystal ball. I think, though, quite apart from the macro factors, the fact that we're next to this massive new gold mine that's going to come on stream, and we're making all these discoveries. You've seen I did tell you guys 6 months ago that I thought the news flow would pick up, and indeed it has. I mean, I think we've been averaging, I'm sure somebody will correct me, but it's round about a release every 10 days. Not every week there's a release. There were no results this week. But we thought that the addition of a fifth rig was important. But I think a combination of all those things, it all goes well for the price here. Look, just think about this. This company already has 2 deposits with 1 million ounces in the ground that were calculated back in 2018. The market cap of this company is about 65 million Canadian dollars. Let's round it down to, let's call it 50 million US dollars. Gold is trading at whatever it is today, 19, 20, or I haven't actually looked at it today. So we're trading at a value of 50 million US dollars. Gold, we've got gold in the ground, what's a million times $1,900 an ounce. So the gold in the ground is about 1.9 billion. There's a lot more gold in the ground than that, because back in 2018, as I've just said to you guys, there was 500,000 ounces that didn't make it in the resource estimate. We've got all these new discoveries. I mean, there's an enormous sort of disconnect there. And when all the boats rise, the ounces that we've got in the ground is going up, and the ounces that we already have are going to, the value per ounce in terms of dollars per ounce that we're getting is going to go up. It must do. So, I think there's a whole bunch of reasons to be very, very optimistic. And as you know, probably the most important thing when I'm contemplating investment in a junior explorer is, what's management doing? There's lots of people who can talk a good story, right? But what's the management team doing? Don't invest in a company, guys, where the CEO gets up and said, well, I'm a big shareholder. Find out if he's put real money on the line, right? Because it's not as common as you would hope. Now, as you guys know, I put 1.7 million of my money in this, which is, I can tell you, is a lot of money to me. So I got exactly the same concerns as you have. And I'm not paying myself a massive salary or taking some sort of consulting fee on the side or anything like that. My interests are aligned with yours because I got so much of my own personal net worth at stake. And that is the most important thing when considering investment in a junior explorer, in my view. But feel free to correct me, Mikkel. But anyway, I'm rambling, guys. I'm rambling.
Well, I agree in what you're saying, and I also think maybe the question was a little bit about whether you see like when you founded Cabral, was it to do a lot of exploration and then sell it to one of the majors, or could you see this project going all the way to production?
Yeah, I get that. I get that. Asked that question all the time, and it's a good question. Look, I think I've said this to you, Mikhail, but it's worth saying again. Our objective here, guys, is to demonstrate the economic viability of this district. And that may well lead us down a path where it leads to a merger or an acquisition or something like that. Personally, I would like to grow this company into a significant producer. It can be a bit soul destroying. Put yourself in my position over the last few months. We've been knocking out fantastic drill results in the large part, and the stock's barely reacted. Can you imagine how incredibly frustrating that is? Most of you will be in businesses where you can measure, you work hard, you have success, your investment goes up, or if the sentiment is negative, the stock can go down on good news. And so it can be incredibly frustrating. But I think all options are on the table right now. The key objective here is to demonstrate the economic viability that could ultimately lead to a sale. Obviously, you've got G Mining on the next door. They don't need us right now, but obviously, if we keep finding gold, we're gonna get harder and harder to ignore. But I mean, we'll only do this if the price is right. It makes sense for us all, right? And if we were to merge or sell ourselves, or you'd all get a vote in that. The board would make a recommendation and look at it. And personally, I'd like to build something. I'd like to be the acquirer rather than be acquired by somebody else. And this speaks to what I was just rambling on about, which was it can be a bit soul destroying when you've got no revenue. I'd like to have some revenue. So anyway, I'd like to have a lot of revenue.
Yeah, thanks for that, Alan. A question from Stein. When you speak about the cost of mining in terms of mining the blankets and its profitability, is the long-term plan that these profits finance the further exploration and in time the mining of hard rock deposits, or is the plan to build up the estimates and sell to a bigger player?
Yeah, good question. The long-term plan here is to make money, right? Both for our shareholders in terms of your investment, and also as a company too. So I think we could make a lot more money from mining and processing and extracting gold from the blankets than we would need for our exploration expenditures. A lot more. Now, obviously, it would certainly help if we could fund our whole exploration effort through the production, but we wouldn't be doing the production just to fund our exploration effort. We'd be doing our production to make money. And hopefully get some of that back to you guys as a dividend. But look, we're obviously a little bit a way out from that yet, but it could come up pretty quick. So margins on these things could be really big. I mean, an analyst in Toronto speculating just before Christmas, I think I mentioned this in the last Q&A we did, that he thought the all-in costs on a per ounce basis for the oxide material at Cuiú, all in mining, processing, everything, would be about $1,000 an ounce. I think that's a bit high, but even $1,000 an ounce, that means you've got a $900 plus margin. It's completely different, and the issue that I've got is explaining to everybody why I'm so excited about 50 meters at 0.7 grams a ton, as opposed to some other company that might have put out 10 meters at 10 grams a ton. Why? All things being equal, obviously 10 meters at 10 grams a ton is better. But if the 10 meters at 10 grams a ton is at hard rock, you've got to get down to it, you sink a shaft down, whereas 50 meters at 0.7, all you need to do is scoop the stuff up. Where do you think you're going to make more money? You're going to make more money on the surface stuff. The margin's enormous, even though the grade is lower. It's really, really important for people to recognize that. Anyway, next question.
Yes, I have a question, Alan. What's the plans with the Bom Shadim property? If you have any, or are you planning on selling it, or will you maybe be drilling it at some point?
Mikkel, we've been so busy with Cuiú Cuiú, we haven't had a lot of time to talk about Bom Jardim. By the way, Bom Jardim in English means good garden. And Bom Jardim was a significant gold producer during the gold rush days. That was a big one. It was much bigger than Tocantinzinho. It's 5 times larger. It was half the size of Cuiú Cuiú. There's 1 million ounces came out of the streams at Bom Jardim. Currently, we have no plans. It's a very interesting project, but you can't be advancing anything. I think if somebody made us a decent offer to come in and explore it, then that's something that we would look at seriously. But we have no immediate plans for it, Mikkel. We'll get to it. There's a very nice golden soil anomaly there. Similar sort of style alteration to at Cuiú Cuiú we know exists there, that exists at Cuiú Cuiú and that exists at TZ, but currently we have no immediate plans for any exploration on the project. It's interesting, but we just can't be everywhere.
Of course. And yeah, the last question from me, there's a presidential election, is it later this year, maybe October or something? What's your view on that, and how could it affect like the everyday work in at Cuiú Cuiú?
It will probably, depending on who wins the presidential election, there could be some changes within the A&M, which is the Mining and Permitting Authority, and indeed the Environmental Agency, SEMAS. So we've just got to sort of wait and see there. I mean, it really depends. I do think this whole TZ thing, the Pará state government is very supportive because, this is a poorer part of Brazil. And so it's not like in the south where there's, lots of manufacturing, lots of big factories and all the rest of it. It's not the case up here. And that TZ development will probably be one of, if not the largest single private development in the western part of Pará state. Obviously the government invests in infrastructure, but outside government investments, I think it's going to create an enormous amount of waves. And I think any government coming in October will be cognizant of that, because that obviously will generate an enormous amount of tax revenues that they'll get from that. And we've been in Brazil, obviously we've had Bolsonaro now for about 4 years, but, I've been working in Brazil during the Lula time, during the Dilma time. There were 4 terms of PT, which is the left of center Workers' Party. And we were able to operate, and obviously there's a lot of other big international mining companies that have been in country through successive governments. As you know, Kinross has a big mine in Brazil. Yamana's here, London Mining's here, Anglo Gold Ashanti is in Brazil, and I'm sure there's several others I've forgotten to mention. So, it could slow the permitting process down, Mikkel, depending on who gets in there. Like I said, changes will always take some time to filter through the system, but I don't see it being some sort of fatal blow.
Okay. Well, I think this concludes it for today, Alan. Thank you very much for your time and for doing a fantastic job. We all look forward to what's ahead.
Yeah, thanks for everybody's time. Look, if anybody, you can see that I put a fair amount of time in this. This is important. I value everybody's interest, and particularly those of you who are shareholders. Feel free to email me at any time. I'm not on the Facebook group, but you can email me directly, alan@cabralgold.com, and I'll get straight back to you. Mikkel will tell you I'm pretty prompt at getting back. So please feel free to contact me at any time. Thanks for your time, guys.
Yes, thanks for listening. Bye.
All the best.